Massive clashes are ongoing between Pakistan and Afghanistan. Video footage of fierce fighting between Pakistan and Afghanistan has been released. In one of video, the Pakistan Air Force PAF has launched major strikes in Kabul and Kandahar, reportedly targeting the Afghan Taliban. In another video, Pakistani fighter jets are bombing Afghan camps along the disputed Durand Line between Pakistan. In this case, on the night of February 27, Pakistani aircraft carried out airstrikes on military targets in Afghan cities, escalating the border conflict into war. Pakistani Defense Minister Khawaja Mohammad Asif declared that Islamabad had launched an open war with the Afghan government. Numerous images of battle scenes have already been released. Pakistani warplanes attacked targets in the cities of Kabul, Kandahar, and Paktia province. The airstrikes hit Taliban and other Afghan armed groups. Our patience has run out. Now there is open war between us and Afghanistan, Asif said. The border conflict between Afghanistan and Pakistan has been ongoing for many years. The border between these countries was established by Great Britain in the 19th century along the so-called Durand Line. Kabul and Islamabad consider each other's border territories to be their own, hence the conflict. After the Taliban seized power in Afghanistan, the border conflict between Kabul and Islamabad escalated to a new level. Shelling between Afghan and Pakistani territories continues almost monthly, despite a ceasefire reached in October 2025. Last week, the Pakistani army launched airstrikes against the Taliban in Nangarhar and Paktia provinces. Kabul claimed that dozens of civilians were killed. In response, the Afghans attempted to seize several Pakistani border crossings. Fighting erupted along virtually the entire Afghan-Pakistani border. In ground military combat, the Pakistani army collapsed. The Pakistani army has air superiority, similar to Israel. However, in direct combat, it did not stand a chance against the Afghans. Most of its military posts along the Durand Line fell within hours into Afghan hands. The Pakistani army cannot carry out airstrikes on the fallen bases and military posts due to the presence of its own personnel. However, it can conduct airstrikes away from the battlefield, which could result in massacres like the one it committed on February 22, when it wiped out an entire family of 18 members, leaving only a few survivors. Such actions would only further damage the already damaged Pakistani army's public image. The difference between the Afghan army and the Pakistani army lies in their military creed. The Afghans have declared an Islamic religious military doctrine. However, the Pakistani army, like the Pakistani state, is suffering from an identity crisis. With the army's involvement in politics and business, it has only weakened itself further.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Ya Allah nasrat da ya Rabba. Ya Rabba. Ya Rabba tati badar parishkar wala ya Rabba. Wali mo dazuna ki malgal. Malgari uqtal. Dazuna makay. Hanjari. Bisa dah sini. Okay. Makan.
دو بجې شپې دي او یو فایټر جت د پاکستان د دالمان شاه ساحه بمبارد کړ.
Afghanistan's military said Thursday it had captured several Pakistani army posts in strikes against its neighbor to retaliate for Pakistani airstrikes on Afghan border areas earlier in the week, the latest escalation of violence between the volatile neighbors. According to Associated Press, a statement issued by the media office of Afghanistan's military corps in the east said heavy clashes had begun Thursday night in response to the recent airstrikes carried out by Pakistani forces in eastern Afghanistan. There was no immediate information on casualties and no immediate response from Pakistan's military to the announcement. In response to the repeated rebellions and insurrections of the Pakistani military, large-scale offensive operations were launched against Pakistani military bases and military installations along the Durand Line, Afghan government spokesman Zabihullah Mujahid said in a post on X Thursday night. The two countries' 2,611-kilometer-long border is known as the Durand Line, which Afghanistan has not formally recognized. Mujahid said at least 5 Pakistani army posts had been captured, while a short while later the Information Directorate of Afghanistan's eastern Nangarhar province said Afghan forces had captured a total of 17 Pakistani military posts. Pakistani local authorities and 2 senior security officials said Pakistani forces deployed along the Afghan border in the northwestern Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province were responding to unprovoked fire by targeting the Afghan positions from which the artillery fire originated. According to Pakistani local administration officials, the exchange of fire began in the Khyber district along the border and later spread to at least 4 other districts. Tension has been high between the two neighbors for months, with deadly border clashes in October killing dozens of soldiers, civilians, and suspected militants. The violence followed explosions in Kabul that Afghan officials blamed on Pakistan. Islamabad, at the time, conducted strikes deep inside Afghanistan to target militant hideouts. A Qatari-mediated ceasefire between the two countries has largely held, but the two sides have still occasionally traded fire across the border. Several rounds of peace talks in November failed to produce a formal agreement. On Sunday, Pakistan's military carried out strikes along the border with Afghanistan, saying it had killed at least 70 militants. Afghanistan rejected the claim, saying dozens of civilians had been killed, including women and children. The Defense Ministry said various civilian areas in eastern Afghanistan had been hit, including a religious madrasa and several homes. The ministry said the strikes were a violation of Afghanistan's airspace and sovereignty.
الله أكبر ولا مجاهدة ولا باكستان وبوسور ولا مدغة زي المجاهدة الله أكبر.
د پاکستاني ځواکونو له لوري په ننګرهار او پکتیا ولایتونو کې د هوایي بریدونو د غچ اخیستنې په موخه باندې همدا شیبه د جمعې شپه 8 بجې دي په شرقي زون کې د 201 خالد بن ولید رضی الله تعالی عنه قل اردو سرحدي او پیاده ځواکونو له طرف نه په ننګرهار او کونړ ولایتونو کې فردي کرښې ته څیرمه د پاکستاني ملیشو په پوستو باندې درنه غزا پیل شوه.
الحمد لله.